Okay, guys, here's the test on high school teammates, how the son of a migrant worker, and the circuit. Don't forget to put your last name first and your first name last, and your period number. According to the high school teammates carry on, how did Leroy end up in the hospital? He was 11 years old at the time, walking to school with his brother along the Wheeling and Lake Erie Railroad tracks near the home in East Akron, Ohio. A freight train approached and Leroy got too close. His backpack got caught on one of the passing cars and he was pulled beneath the wheels. I didn't even look down, said Leroy, now 19, recalling the first moments afterwards. I was just staring at the sun the whole time. I wasn't trying to look down because that's when I would have panicked. The paramedics who arrived within minutes saved Leroy's life, but the doctors could not save his entire body. At Children's Hospital in Akron, his left leg was amputated below the knee, his right leg below the hip. He knew what had happened, but he didn't understand what he'd lost until a day later when he lifted the sheets and looked down. A, he was struck by a train. B, he was in a car accident. Or C, he hurt himself wrestling. According to high school teammates carry on, why did Leroy build up his arm muscles after he came home from the hospital? Leroy left in hospital a month and a half later. He endured long, difficult hours of rehabilitation. He accepted that being in a wheelchair would be part of his life, but he was determined to make it a small part. I did not want to be in my chair, he said. I had to build up my arm muscles so I could move around. I move around on my arms a lot. A, he wanted to be a wrestler. B, he had to do everything on his own. Or C, he wanted to minimize the use of his wheelchair. Number 3. According to high school teammates carry on, how does D'Artagnan like Leroy? D'Artagnan lifted Leroy onto his back for the playing of every national anthem and carried him down the bleachers before each match. Yet, as inseparable as they were, a team unto themselves in a way, they also shared something greater than their sport. That's because a teammate who carried Leroy on his back all season long knows about challenges himself. D'Artagnan Crockett knows because he's legally blind. A, he lost a parent. B, he has a disability. Or C, he is a league champion. Number 4. According to high school teammates carry on, why was the graduation special for Leroy? What would you do for a friend, one you carried on your back all year long? You put him down and walk beside him, which is exactly what D'Artagnan did. He helped Leroy stand upon new prosthetic legs he was fitted for just weeks earlier, then moved alongside him as Leroy crossed the stage step for step, eye to eye. When Leroy stopped, put out his hand, grasped his diploma, the audience rose and delivered a standing ovation. After the photos were taken and the music stopped, the tears dried, and the two sat in the theater side by side. As long as I can remember, D'Artagnan said, I've been carrying him from point A to B to C. Graduation was the first time I finally got to walk beside him. He paused. It was a privilege. It was an honor. A, the ceremony was televised. B, he walked to get his diploma. Or C, D'Artagnan carried him on the stage. Which sentence best describes the short story in the circuit? This selection from the circuit, Stories from the Life of a Migrant Child, a collection of the autobiographical short stories by Francisco Jimenez. In the story, a narrator, Panchito, tells of his difficult early childhood years as part of a family of migrant farm workers. To him, life consisted of constant moving and work, with school wedged in around harvesting jobs. The circuit in the title refers to the path migrant farmers take every year to find jobs. A, it is a story about the narrator's experience as a migrant farm worker. B, it is a story about the narrator's conflicts with his family members. Or C, it is a story about the narrator's failed attempts to find work. Number 6, in the circuit, how does the narrator Panchito feel about moving? Yes, it was that time of year when I opened the front door to the shack. I stopped. Everything we owned was neatly packed in cardboard boxes. Suddenly, I felt even more of the weight of the hours, days, weeks, and months of work. I sat down on a box. The thought of having to move to Fresno, knowing what was in store for me, brought tears to my eyes. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed thinking about how much I hated this move. A, he thinks that living in one place would be boring. B, he dislikes constantly moving from place to place. Or C, he enjoys moving around but dislikes the work. Number 7, in the circuit, what does Mr. Lima do that causes Panchito to feel dizzy? The first thing we have to do this morning is finish reading the story we began yesterday, he said enthusiastically. He walked up to me, handed me an English book, and asked me to read. We are page 125, he said politely. When I heard this, I felt my blood rush to my head. I felt dizzy. Would you like to read? He asked hesitantly. I opened the book to page 125. My mouth was dry, my eyes began to water. I could not begin. You can read later, Mr. Lima said understandingly. A, Mr. Lima asked Panchito to read from an English book. B, Mr. Lima tells Panchito to introduce himself to the class. Or C, Mr. Lima suggests that Panchito is not in the right classroom. Number 8, in the circuit, a school bus arrives when Panchito and Roberto are working in the fields. How do they react? Suddenly, I noticed Papa's face turn pale as he looked down the road. Here comes a school bus, he whispered loudly in alarm. Instinctively, Roberto and I ran and hid in the vineyards. We did not want to get in trouble for not going to school. The neatly dressed boys about my age got off. They carried books under their arms. After they crossed the street, the bus drove away. Roberto and I came out the hiding and joined Papa. A, they watched the bus wistfully. B, they shouted and made faces. Or C, they ran away and hid. Number 9, which of the following is the most likely true about Papa based on the following excerpt from the circuit? When he finally chose the Carson Cheetah, he checked it thoroughly before driving it out of the car lot. He examined every inch of the car. A, Papa proceeds carefully in important matters. B, Papa pretends to know more than he does. Or C, Papa is overly trusting of others. 10. Which excerpt from the circuit most helps the reader understand that Pachito wants to learn? During recess, I went to the restroom and opened my English book to page 125. I began to read in a low voice, pretending I was in class. There were many words I did not know. I closed the book and headed to the classroom. Mr. Lehman was sitting at his desk correcting papers. When I entered, he looked up and smiled. I felt better. I walked up to him and asked if he could help me with my new words. Gladly, he said. The rest of my lunch hours working on English, my best friend at school. A, everything we owned was neatly packed in boxes. Suddenly, I felt even more the weight of the hours, days, weeks, and months of work. B, we did not want to get in trouble for not going to school. Or C, I walked up to him and asked him if he could help me with the new words. And 11:11 in the circuit. Which of the following is the best way to describe the work that Panchito does in the fields? The next morning, I could hardly move. My body ached all over. I felt little control of my arms and legs. The feeling went on every morning for days until my muscles finally got used to the work. A, the work was easy. B, the work was scary. Or C, the work was challenging. Number 12. In the circuit, which word clearly describes how Mr. Lima acts towards Panchito? The first thing we have to do in the morning is finish reading the story we began yesterday, he said enthusiastically. He walked up to me, handed me an English book, and asked me to read. We are on page 125, he said politely. When I heard this, I felt blood rush to my head. I felt dizzy. Would you like to read? He asked hesitantly. I opened the book to 125. My mouth was dry. My eyes began to water. I could not begin. You can read it later, Mr. Lima said understandingly. Was he A, resentful, B, perplexed, or C, kind-hearted? Read the following passage from How the Son of the Migrant Farm Workers Became an Astronaut. The next year, things changed. We all moved to Stockton, California, year-round, visiting Mexico only in Christmas vacations. This stability really helped me. I started speaking English better and was able to focus on learning. How did permanently moving to Stockton influence Hernandez's life? A, it helped him become a better student and learn more English. B, it helped him improve his Spanish and be a better athlete. Or C, it helped him be the most popular student in his English class. Explaining sentence types. This is a reference tool for you guys to remember simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence. Please answer the following questions. Number 14. Identify each sentence with the correct sentence structure. Mrs. Guerra likes to run. Is that an A, simple sentence, B, compound sentence, or C, complex sentence? Number 15. Although Mrs. Harrison likes to read social media posts about her neighborhood drama, she doesn't like to add personal comments. Is that A, simple sentence, B, compound sentence, or C, complex sentence? Number 16. Miss Tribby doesn't care for technology, but she has to teach online classes. A, simple sentence, B, compound sentence, or C, complex sentence? I've included an example of comma rules. Please read the following questions and determine where the comma is written appropriately. Number 17. Which of the following sentences in each grouping is written correctly based on the comma rules? Now, each one of these I'm going to read exactly the same. So what I want you to do is look to see where the comma's at. Okay? She said, please, pass the honey. She said, please pass the honey. She said, please pass the honey. Number 18, which of the following sentences in each grouping is written correctly based on the comma rules? The sentence says, Mr. Guthrie, the principal of our school, is a great man. B, Mr. Guthrie, the principal of our school, is a great man. C, Mr. Guthrie, the principal of our school is a great man. Number 19, which of the following sentences in each grouping is written correctly based on the comma rules? I love football season, but I don't like the heat. I love football season, but I don't like the heat. I love football season, but I don't like the heat. Number 20. Which of the following sentences in each grouping is written correctly based on the comma rule? Please buy me popcorn, candy, and a drink. Please buy me popcorn, candy, and a drink. Please buy me popcorn, candy, and a drink. All right, guys, that's the end of your test. I wish you the best of luck. Don't forget to hit submit and mark it as done.